So thank you, everybody, for joining our cooking class today, sponsored by Taylor Farms. We have two different salad recipes that we're going to be working through today. One is going to be a pasta salad. The other one is going to be a summer panzanella salad. So if you have any questions or any comments about anything that's happening throughout the cooking class, feel free to come off mute and chit chat or add anything to the chat. And I'll try to keep up on that to keep in communications with you guys. But to get us started, we are going to be doing the avocado ranch pasta salad. And as I was picking these recipes, we hear the name pasta salad. And usually there's not, leafy greens within our pasta salad. Of course, the base of the salad is the pasta, and then we have all of our add-ins in there. But why not add a twist to it and find a way that we can add a little bit more leafy greens and fiber and color into the recipes that we're creating? So that's exactly what we're going to be doing with this recipe today. So to get us started, I have already cooked up my pasta. The recipe calls for bow ties, but I think that this is totally up to your creative freedom. Choose your favorite shape, type, color of pasta that you want to use, and add that to this recipe. Today, I'm using a whole grain rotini because I'm your dietitian and I'm finding any way to be able to add more fiber into our recipes. So that's why I'm choosing this whole grain pasta. So from here, we will add in our black beans. We're going to be using the Meyer brand low sodium black beans today. So I have already rinsed these and have them ready to go. So I'm going to add these in here. One of the best things I love about just a pasta salad recipe in general, or the recipes that we're doing today, is all of these are just going to be a chop and add into a bowl, which I love that. It's super simple, quick. And then we're also going to be able to add a lot of flavors and textures in here as well. So we've got our noodles, we've got our beans in here. The next thing in the few last ingredients that we have is we're going to chop up some of our avocados and try to work this in here. So I'm going to add 2 avocados in here, depending on how you feel about avocados, the textures, the flavor. Maybe you want to do 1, maybe you want to do 3. So add in however many you would like. And I'm just going to cut this in half. And it looks beautiful. I'm going to pull this pit out. Little trick there, just, carefully try to get it with your knife. I'm going to put that in my bin here. And then I'm going to use my spoon to kind of carefully just cut out the edges of this, trying to keep it intact, because what we're going to do here is we want to cut this into like little cubes. So do your best to kind of get it out of the skin. That was not perfect, but we're still, for the most part, intact. I'm going to do that same thing with the other side here. And if you didn't know, avocados are actually a fruit. Something that you've maybe heard before is how we can identify a fruit is that it has a seed in it. And so we know that obviously the avocado has that pit in there. And it's one of our only fruits that contains healthy fats. So with the fiber that is in our avocado, which is going to be a pretty great source of fiber, along with the healthy fats, is a pretty rare combo that we're going to see for just fruits in general. I can't really think of any other fruits off the top of my head that are going to have healthy fats within them. So just as a little fun fact for you to have. And we're just going to chop up this last avocado here. And back to the pasta, just make sure that it's fully cooled before you start adding all of your ingredients in. We just want to make sure that it's not going to soak up any of the extra dressing that we're going to put onto it later. So we want to make sure that it's nice and cooled. I cooked my pasta about an hour ago or so. And just kind of fluffed it up every little while just to help, breathe some fresh air through it. So it's all cooled at this point. This would be another really great recipe to bring for the holiday weekend that's happening next weekend. really quick to make. So if you're camping, you can kind of whip this together pretty quickly. Whether you want to put your pot of water over the fire, or if maybe you have more of like a glamping situation where you do have a kitchen, you can just put that pot of water over the stove, heat up those noodles, and then just add in all the rest of the ingredients. So for the most part, they're going to be shelf stable. So I'm cutting this avocado into cubes right now. I'm just going to add that right into our bowl. And avocados are grown on trees, and kind of like tomatoes, they ripe off of the vine or from where they're growing. So they are really great for that travel time that they need to be able to get to the grocery store without already being, too ripe. These ones are actually really perfect right now. They're still a little firm to be able to hold their shape for me to keep them in cube form. But not too hard that I'm going to have almost like, a tougher texture to get through. So these ones are right at the peak of perfect. We're actually going to have avocado in both of our recipes today. So kind of a spotlight fruit that we've got on the docket. Okay. Just a little piece right here. I'm gonna wash off my hands real quick. All right, now I'm gonna chop up our cilantro. I love chopping up herbs. I do my cilantro and my basil pretty similar. I trim off these ends. Every part of the cilantro is edible, so know that you can eat these. I just prefer more of the leafy side of this herb, so I usually cut this part off. And then just roll it up into a bunch. And then just go ahead right in with your chop. I love the smell that comes right off of it when you do this. And I love a lot of cilantro, so I'm adding all of this in here. Feel free to add in however much you want to add. And just give it a nice fine chop, just so you're not seeing too many of the full leaves, but it's going to be almost like a mince. Just to make sure we get a good distribution of the cilantro when we mix everything together. Make sure we're spreading all of that flavor around. That's pretty good. I'm going to add all of this in here. And then we just need to add our limes and our bag salad and the contents within it. So I'm going to do just a quick half chop on these limes. You could put a little lime zest in this recipe if you wanted to, or just do the lime juice, whichever you prefer. I have actually already made this recipe this week, just because it was so quick and easy, and there was just minimal ingredients. I thought that this would be a really good choice just to have as part of my meal prep. So I would recommend buying a few extra limes than the amount that it's calling for on the recipe, just so you can put a couple wedges in your meal prep container, just to give it a nice little squeeze before you eat it, just to give that fresh flavor in it, and to keep the avocado looking fresh as well. When we add lemon or any type of acid onto our avocado, or even like our apples, kind of our fruits that oxidize pretty quickly, the acid is going to help keep that looking fresh without browning very quickly. So when we add this lime in here, we know that this pasta salad is going to look fresh for hopefully the whole week. So I'm going to go ahead and add my lime in here. And I'm just going to hand juice it. If you have a lime or a lemon actual tool to do this, that is going to be the most ideal. But this is going to have to work for right now. really like the lime flavor, so I'm gonna put all 3 of these limes in here. One more squeeze. And this recipe is fun because you can keep it as simple or as fun as you want. If you wanted to make this into a full meal, we would just need to add more of a quality protein source. We're going to get a little bit of protein from the whole grain pasta. Of course, we're going to get protein from the beans as well. But we could add like some shrimp in here. We could do a chicken, whatever type of protein you want to add to turn this into a full meal. You could add tomatoes in here. Some red onions would bring in some really nice flavor too. So any of those options could be really fun. Or if you just want to keep it simple, this is good with just the ingredients that it calls for. So however creative you want to get, feel free to choose your own adventure for this. Now we've got all of our limes in here. I'm going to add the bagged salad. Pull up a little packet here. So this is just a cabbage and carrot and some leafy green mixture. Bowl's getting pretty full. We're gonna have enough pasta salad for the rest of the week and into the weekend. And then in the contents of this salad packet, we've got some corn. We've got a little bit of, looks like some Kobe Jack cheese. And then we have our avocado ranch. So if the cheese and the corn are some ingredients that you want to be highlighted a little bit more, just make sure to have those on hand too, just because they won't be as well distributed with all of the extra ingredients that we've added to this bag salad. So you could add another can of corn or maybe even like a pepper jack cheese to bring in a little bit of spice in here if that's what you like. Then we're going to add our dressing. And when I made this earlier this week, I felt like the dressing actually still just distributed pretty well. Even though we're adding more contents than what is originally in the bag salad packet, I felt like the dressing still distributed pretty well without feeling like not everything got covered. So there's that for you. You could also take this dressing and add an avocado to it, maybe even some of the lime and cilantro and blend that up together if you do like more of a saucy pasta salad, just to give more of that sauce distribution if you would like. But just know that this actually kind of coats pretty well. So we've got everything that is a part of this recipe. I'm going to grab some tongs here. We're just going to toss this around a little bit. In the recipe, it calls out just like making sure that you lightly mix everything together to try to keep those avocado chunks intact. So just be mindful of that as you're kind of twisting everything together here. And like most pasta salads, as this is, going to sit in our fridge, it's going to marinate a little bit too. So those noodles are going to soak up some of this flavor. That cilantro, of course, is going to be getting well distributed throughout everything. So just know that it's going to taste good now and it's going to taste good in 2 to 3 days too. So, and I can vouch for that because I have been eating it for the past week. Okay, we've got a pretty good mix here. I'm going to try to show you guys what this looks like without dumping everything all over my computer. It looks green and yellow and black and beautiful. This is kind of what we've got right now. We have a ton in here. So this is going to be a great serving, enough to feed you and your family for a good amount of time throughout the week. I always take a bite for you guys just to validate that it's delicious. Thank you, Nikki. I forgot to add the salt and pepper. Make sure to add a little bit of this in here. There was no measurements for the salt and pepper, so just add it to taste. You could just add it to your own when you serve yourself, or you could add it into the overall dish, whichever you prefer. I immediately could taste we were missing one thing, actually two things. Okay. Yep, there we go. If anybody has any questions or wants to know any more about these ingredients, please shoot something in the chat or feel free to come off mute. I'm going to set this aside. I also wanted to make sure that I called out that Michigan is actually one of our main bean growers. We even sell some of our Michigan beans at Meijer and some of the brands that you'll see on the shelf. So I wanted to call that out. I was able to connect with our Michigan Bean Commission, which was really cool because I didn't actually know that we were a huge distributor of beans. So just so that you guys have that information too, just like the power of Michigan and all of our 4 seasons and, you know, all of the wonderful things that we're able to grow here. So I'm going to clean up from this last recipe. Right, new cutting board, new recipe. So we're going to start that next. Summer panzanella salad. And this one's going to be similar. It's kind of just going to be the basis of our bag salad and then all of our chopped beautiful veggies and bread that's going to go into this one. And before we get started on this one, I kind of wanted to take you guys back to where this salad was created and originated. I learned that it had started in the countryside of Italy. In a way, this was kind of our poor man's meal. So back in those times, people would make their own bread and everybody always had bread on hand. But when you make bread, you know that it kind of only lasts maybe a few days, not like stuff that we would normally buy from our grocery store, which can last a little bit longer. So to be able to revive that bread, what they would do is they would soak it in water to kind of bring some of that softness back into the stale bread, and then they would bake it again. And so I got these tiny little cut up pieces of bread here, and these are just cooked so that they're crispy on the outside and then actually pretty soft on the inside, so that when we eat a piece of bread this big, it's still going to be soft and it's not going to be painful. So I thought that that story was really awesome to be able to learn more about where this recipe has come from. Originally, it was just the bread, onions, olive oil, and vinegar to start. And then once tomatoes started to be more popular in this population, that's when the tomatoes kind of came into this mix. And so if anybody's already been pre-exposed to this type of salad, you know that the tomatoes are definitely a highlighted ingredient in here. So it's kind of just the basis of this recipe is whatever you have, make it up as you go, use the ingredients that you have and get creative with it. Kind of like we were talking about in that last recipe. If you wanted to add more, if you wanted to add less, what can we add it to make it a main meal? We can do that. And so that's one of the things that I really like about the Taylor Farms salads is being able to create them in so many different ways for our people who have joined our cooking classes before, especially our Taylor Farms. They have been a wonderful partner to us. So we have created so many different things with bag salads. And if anybody wants any of those other recipes, I'm happy to share those out. We've added it to spaghettis or acorn squash before, and now we're making pasta salads with it. So just a really nice product to be able to have something quick and easy, but also make it nutritious as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this next one. So I've got another one of our big containers here. I'm actually going to start with the bag salad first, just to add this at the bottom. And I'm just going to add the cabbage in here, or sorry, the leafy green contents. And this green goddess salad, this is actually one of my favorites. This is one that I often buy. The dressing kind of tastes a little bit like pesto, which is one of my favorite flavors ever. So if that's something that you also enjoy, I'd recommend trying this one out. I'm just going to pour this in here. And then we'll wait to just pour those extra additional contents of the salad into it. So I have this lovely grilled corn. We are fortunate to have a dietetic intern with us today. So he was on the grill for me today. He did a great job grilling this corn. This was actually his first time grilling corn. So I think that this looks beautiful. So we're going to add this in. This was about 4 ears of corn. So depending on how much corn you like, feel free to add more or add less. This is the type of bread that we're using today. It's the Meyer brand sourdough with some ancient grains in here. And how I did this is I cut it up into these little cubes, laid it out on a baking sheet, sprayed a little bit of olive oil on top of it with some salt and pepper, and then put it in the oven at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. And then it gave these really nice, almost like crunchy, soft croutons. In the recipe, it talks about cooking them in the pan. So whichever way makes the most sense for you, you could also make these in a pan on the stove. You could put them in the oven. Whichever way is going to make the most sense for you, go ahead and do it that way. And then our next ingredient is I chopped up some basil here. I obviously pre-chopped this, but like I was saying with the cilantro, I usually just pull it off of the stem, roll it all up, and then do a nice fine chop from there. Add some of our breadcrumbs. I probably won't put all of these in here. I'm kind of going to see what the ratios look like once we get everything in here, but I'll take a little corner here for some of these. And once we add that dressing in there too, it's going to kind of soften those up a little bit. So even if they do happen to get a little bit overcooked, just know that there is likely going to be a chance for them to have that opportunity to soften back up, especially once they'll be in the fridge for some time too. So just so that you know that as well. We've got our beautiful colored tomatoes here. I'm going to do a quick just half chop on these. I've been eating the Sugar Bomb. They kind of are about this size tomatoes that Meyer has right now. I have been loving those. If you would have asked me 10 years ago that I would eat tomatoes as a snack, I would have thought you were crazy, but I really have grown to love tomatoes. It kind of started when my best friend started growing them in her garden, and I really was able to taste the true beauty of a fresh tomato and the flavor that comes with it. So this is one of my favorite times of year, just because of all of the things that we have in season right now. You know, kind of coming into that tomato season. We're going to be adding asparagus into this recipe here shortly, which is also in season right now. Asparagus is kind of a funny plant. So it's a perennial, meaning that it's going to come back every year. But what happens is when it first starts to grow, you get one teeny tiny asparagus. And how you get to see the big ones that we see at the store is it just has to keep growing stronger and bigger every single year. But eventually, after it is out of its asparagus stage, it's going to kind of turn into like a little bit of a bush, which is interesting because we just see this one stalk. And then it turns into this bush that in a way kind of flowers and then spreads its seeds to be able to make more asparagus for that next season. Almost finished up here with the tomatoes. We'll go ahead and add that asparagus in here. In the recipe, you'll see that the asparagus could also be grilled as well. That grilling is going to kind of help bring out that sweet flavor that we're going to see in the corn and also in the asparagus. I chose to cook it up in my cast iron pan today. So again, one of those situations where whichever way is going to work best for you is going to make this recipe still taste delicious. So we're going to add our asparagus back in here. I cooked it so that it's, you know, pretty much cooked fully through for the most part, but I still do want a little bit of a crunch. I don't like it when my asparagus is really mushy or anything. So it's cooked just about fully cooked. All right. Then we've got a last few ingredients to add here. We've got our avocado. I'm going to do this the same way I did in our last recipe. We're going to cut this in half. And then just kind of pull it out of its shell and cut it up into some cubes. Whenever I do these cooking classes, we have a beautiful compost contribution. My sister is very proud of her compost, so she always loves when I'm over here doing the cooking classes because I have a lot to add after them.
Someone put a comment in the chat. It said, Suzanne said, where can I get the recipes you're doing today? I would like the acorn squash recipe.
Yes. Okay, so my dietetic intern Brecken just let me know that Suzanne put a comment in the chat wondering where the acorn squash recipe is. Suzanne, I will remember you and I will get your email that you used to sign up for the class today, and I'll send you that acorn recipe. That was one that we did, I believe, at the end of last year. So that recording might not be available, but I will send you the YouTube link to be able to view that recording if you'd like. And then I'll also send you the recipe for it too. So I'll keep a mental note of that to get that sent over to you. If anybody else would like that recipe too, feel free to shoot that in the chat. Thanks for that, Brecken. Go ahead and put in the chat what anybody's making for next weekend. Maybe you don't have to make anything and you are just that lucky person attending maybe the barbecue or the camp out. I'd love to know what recipes people are making. I always love to see if maybe I could steal your recipe ideas.
Aaron would also like the acorn squash recipe.
Perfect, Aaron. I will get that recipe for you as well. Acorn squash is super homey for me. My mom always used to make it during the holiday season. She would do it, you know, the traditional brown sugar with butter in it, and just very cozy. This recipe that I'm going to be sending you is going to be a little bit more nutritious because we're going to be adding, I believe it's the sweet broccoli bag salad into it. So it's already the bowl as is with the acorn squash. And then just that bag salad recipe that's already has all of the ingredients that you need in there. So super easy one and very festive, especially during those warm months, or sorry, the cold months. So I've got our bell pepper chopped up here. I'm gonna make these into a little bit of a dice. So try to make them kind of small. So I'm gonna cut it lengthwise and then just bring it all the way through on the side. And maybe one day I'll go to culinary school and I'll learn how to chop things just absolutely beautifully and quickly at the same time. But for right now, everything for me is just a rough chop. So feel free to do the same, or if you do know some really great cutting skills, put those to work and make this extra beautiful. As you can see, when I had everything set up here, when you guys all came onto the call, there was a ton of fruits and vegetables. So you know that both of these recipes are going to be fiber packed. I've talked so many times about the reasons why fiber is so good for us. It's good for our gut health. It's good to help keep us full for longer. It's great for our health. So many different ways that fiber is beneficial to our body. And we're getting a ton of it in these recipes today. So many different colors. I forgot to mention about the beans. Beans are high in antioxidants. Antioxidants are great for being able to help with inflammation. And the darker that the bean is, the higher the antioxidant content. So in that last recipe, we're using black beans, which is going to be the darkest of all the beans. So the highest antioxidant content. And then from there, it goes to our red beans, like a kidney bean. Then it goes to our yellow, or sorry, our brown, like a pinto bean, then yellow, and then into our white beans, like a cannellini bean. We're gonna chop up a little bit of our cucumber here. Do the same thing here too, kind of make it into a nice dice, still so that we can get it with a fork, but as, you know, size of like a bite size. So I'm gonna cut this into fours and then just do nice thin chops. And a recipe like this is one of my favorites. I love to just make it up as I go without measuring or anything like that, keeping track of the timer on the oven. I'm a free bird. So I love just being able to add however much you want to add in here. I think I'm going to probably add maybe half of this cucumber. Then our last ingredient is our zucchini. And we are going to be doing this a little differently. You could absolutely still just cut this up in dice form if you would like. Or for this recipe, we are going to be making it into ribbons. So I will be using my vegetable peeler to achieve this today. If you haven't seen any of like the carrot ribbon salads yet, definitely look into those recipes or that recipe in particular. The carrot ribbons are so beautiful. There's a ton of different ways to marinate them, other ingredients that you can add to those types of salads. Just to be able to make it a little bit more fun. You know, sometimes even just cutting up a fruit or a vegetable in a different way can be what it takes to be able to add it into today's meal. So do whatever you have to do to make it fun, because that is also part of healthy eating and nutrition. And you'll see here, I've put a fork at the end of this zucchini to be able to help hold it, just to, you know, save my hands a little bit, make sure I don't cut myself. And I'm just going to start making ribbons. I'm going to probably do this till we're about halfway down. So this is what it's going to look like. Very beautiful, very thin. We'll add this in here. We've got a really, another full container here. Okay, and then we are just going to add the contents of our salad now. This is going to be the last step. Looks like we've got a few little crushed up breadcrumbs in here, a seasoning packet. If you are gluten-free or gluten sensitive, feel free to omit this. Or if you are doing your breadcrumbs, of course, use your gluten-free bread. I made actually some croutons with gluten-free bread at our last cooking class with Dr. Shar. So I have tried it. I know that the bread can do it. It tasted just like you would find anywhere else. Shake up this dressing a little bit. Okay. And same thing here too. If you wanted a little bit more of a coating on the contents of this recipe, you could add a little bit more olive oil in here. You could even add some pesto itself because it kind of resembles the flavors that are in this dressing already. We could add a little lemon on top of it just to bring some brightness through and also kind of help preserve those avocados that are in here. We're not going to forget to add our salt and pepper for this one. Now, we're just going to mix all of this together. Trying to keep all of the contents in here. And again, this one could be a really nice side that you bring. You could also make this into a full meal by adding in some protein in here. Whatever kind you would like, I think would pair well with all of the flavors that are in here. And as I'm mixing this up, just want to make sure you guys know that we are doing sponsored mini sessions right now for the month of June. We're also doing mini sessions for July and all of the months of the rest of the year. So if you do have some maybe personal questions that you're thinking about as we go through these cooking classes or these recipes in general, just know that you can sign up for one of those free 20-minute appointments that we have available. I'm happy to send out the sign up link for that. Just to be able to talk with one of our dietitians one-on-one, kind of maybe a little bit more about like your personal experience with nutrition, maybe some other recipes that would fit into the ingredients that you commonly buy at the grocery store that you have in your pantry. So just know that those are available to you for the rest of the year. So if not this month, we have a few more months of the year left to go. So everything is mixed together here. You can already smell all of the delicious flavors that are going to be present in this recipe. I'm going to try to show you guys what we've got going on. So a ton of color. We've got our beautiful bread in here, our little bit of a ribbon zucchini. I'm going to give it a test for you. It's going to be hard to get everything on here because my fork might just not be big enough. At least get a little piece of bread. I did cook my bread a little bit more so that it would be more crunchy because I knew it was going to get soft. And I can already feel it softening up as we start to mix this together. If this is something that you're trying to eat throughout the week, maybe hold off on that dressing just until you're ready to eat. Just to kind of keep everything nice and fresh in here. Maybe keep your croutons on the side in a separate container that you can just add to your lunch pail as you leave, or, you know, to your side dish as you're preparing dinner. Just to kind of keep everything in the texture form that you want it to. If you don't mind that bread softening up a little bit, feel free to make it just as is. But if anybody has any questions, I'm going to take a pause here and just give that space for any questions or anything, and then we will be done. Yes, North Dakota for beans. Thank you, Christine. All right, everybody, if there's no questions, thank you all again for joining our Taylor Farms cooking class today. Feel free to check out our offerings for next month. We've got some more classes coming up then, or feel free to join one of our mini sessions. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Just thank you again for hopping on.